Hey YouTube, it's your boy Kenrick here again, aka the Optometry Prodigy, and guys, I'm coming at you again with this week's video. But firstly guys, I must thank you guys so much. We have crossed the 100 subscriber mark. We are at 103. Guys, thank you so much for the support throughout thus far on this channel. I hope that we continue to the support will continue, and I'm gonna continue to bring the videos, guys, as usual. We're gonna have more features like the last video last week. You can go back and look at that with my colleague there. And guys, we're going in straight into this video. This was done a couple of Sundays ago. I know we had a family session, and I must say shout out for Natalie from the US of A for organizing that call with the family. And I spoke to them on the case of pathologies, low vision, and perception as well. And this first part here is just going to be on the pathology aspect that I spoke to them about. Guys, I hope you enjoyed. I'd really like to share this with you guys. Enjoy. So pathology basically deals with the diseases, and the causes, the effects of certain diseases. And what I want to look at today is refractive errors, the dry eye disease, cataract, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, age-related macular degeneration. And the reason why I'm sticking with these 6 as well is because these are the main ones that we see worldwide. Some of them are what we call irreversible conditions, such as the glaucoma, even age-related macular degeneration. Once damage is done by these, it's irreversible at this point in time. Some others, they are reversible once you get the treatment, etc. People tend to recover in terms of their vision. And the refractive error, the first one that we'll be dealing with, it's not necessarily a pathology or a disease, but only mainly in its severe stages. So let's look at the refractive errors for now. Alright, so before we go into the refractive errors exactly, I want you all to remember 4 main parts of the eyes. This will help you to understand as I go along. So just 4 main parts I really want you all to focus on. There are many parts, but for now we're sticking with these. So we have the cornea firstly. The cornea is the front surface of the eyes. You may not see it what we call with the naked eye because it's a clear surface, but it's there. It's the front portion of the eye. Then we have the lens, which is inside of the eye. It's right behind what we call the iris. So we have the iris here. That's the brown or dark part. We know some people have light blue eyes, etc. That's the iris in front. Inside of that, we have the lens. The other thing I want you to remember is the retina. It's at the back of the eye. We call it the light sensitive part of the eye. When light hits it, it collects the information of the objects around us, and then it transmits that information to what we call the optic nerve at the back of the eye. The optic nerve simply takes that information and carries it to the brain. So the 4 areas, what you need to just keep in mind while we're going through the different pathologies: the cornea, the lens, the retina, and the optic nerve. So let's go into the refractive errors. These are the main forms of refractive errors. We have what we call myopia or short-sighted. So that's for the people who are, they can see clearly up front or what we call near. However, with the distance, they have a little problem seeing that. So if they look out, during let's say a football match or something, possibly even the distance of where you might have your TV, etc., what we call the intermediate, you might have a little problem seeing that. However, in terms of reading, using their phones, etc., it's not a problem. So we call them short-sighted, or they are myopic. And that is usually caused, you see the front surface again, which we call the cornea. When that's a bit more steep than a normal cornea, you tend to get the myopia setting in there. Or in other cases, the eye itself might be a little bit larger than usual. So that's how we get the short-sighted. People with this, they'll have that blurred vision. Sometimes they might get the little headaches and so forth in terms of short-sightedness. Long-sightedness now, we call it hyperopia. That's the scientific word behind it, hyperopia. Hyperopia is simply when at near you have a little bit of trouble there seeing, but however at distance you can see pretty clearly. So near is the problem there and distance is normal. And again, back to the cause, the cornea in this case would be flatter. So it's the opposite of being short-sighted. The cornea in this case would be flatter. And as I said before, with short-sighted, the eye would be larger. So therefore, in long-sightedness now, the eye would actually be smaller. So myopia, steep cornea, larger eye, long-sightedness or hyperopia, flatter cornea, and a smaller eye. However, with these two, we can have what we call astigmatism. Astigmatism can either happen with myopia, it can happen with hyperopia, or it can happen by itself. And astigmatism, it's a big word, but what it simply means is the eye normally, it has a shape, let's say, like a soccer football, it's uniformly round. However, in the case of astigmatism, it's more like, the American football, where one side is a bit longer than the other side. So in terms of the surface of the eye, one meridian, one plane, one axis, one angle, it's a bit longer than the other eye. Than the other side. Then we have what we call presbyopia. And presbyopia is a condition where when you reach possibly over the age of 40, early 40s, mid 40s, people begin to have that problem at seeing at near. It will settle in a bit later in those who are myopic because they already can see good at near. So they don't really get it as early as those who are long-sighted. And again, presbyopia, problems at near, and this is because the lens in the eye, it becomes a little bit less what we call elastic. It can't get thicker or thinner as it will be needed to see at near. So the lens starts to give a little bit of problems there, and the muscles controlling the lens as well. It's just an aging condition in terms of presbyopia. Um, Now let's go on to what we call the dry eye disease. And dry eye disease is simply a lack of tear production or a high rate of tear evaporation. So it can be either or. And within the dry eye diseases, there are many different forms. But just to simplify it, um, this is just a diagram of the layers that we have in front on the cornea. So remember, that was one of the areas I told you to remember. The cornea, it has a layer of fluid on top of it. So we have a oily layer or a lipid layer on top. Then we have a watery layer or aqueous layer. Then we have a mucin or mucus layer. When the glands that produce this oily layer is dysfunctional in some manner, or something causes it to not be there as it should be in terms of quantity, the aqueous layer is able to quicker evaporate without this lipid layer here. And with the aqueous layer, sometimes the gland producing the aqueous is dysfunctional in some form, and hence this component will be decreased. And then we have the mucin as well, similar thing. Once the glands not producing enough, etc., we have a problem coming in there as well. And what people would usually experience with this is, the itchy eyes, the grittiness or sandy feeling in the eyes. We also hear certain things, the person's eye turns red, especially later on in the day, and those kinds of complaints what usually happen with the dry eye disease. And this is easily treated. This one is easily treated as well. However, we also have the aspect when people are getting a little bit older, they tend to the oilier tends to be a little bit more less, so they usually experience it a little more. However, if you're working in an environment with a lot of dust, possibly even a place like the Caribbean where it's a little more bit tropical, a lot of heat, etc., you would find a lot of people with the dry eye issue. So we usually give them some lubricating drops. In other cases, where some of the glands on the eyelids are dysfunctional, may have heard about, we give them warm compressors that you lay on the eyes, and then you give the eyes a massage after that. That clears out the glands on the front on the eyelids to ensure that we get that tear film forming in front of the eyes. In other cases, we can have certain conditions, systemic conditions we call them, diabetes, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. These different diseases, they can also cause an individual to have dry eyes. Some medications, such as like the glaucoma drops, they can also lead to dry eyes. So usually with the glaucoma drops, depending on the drop they give you, they might also give you a lubricating drop with that. One of the main ones you would see is the drop star. That's to keep the front surface of the eye moist, as we would say. So that's the dry eye disease. Everybody with me there? Uh-huh. So basically, the main thing is, so sometimes the glands in the eyes, they are a bit what we would say clogged, right? With the with a thick um oily layer. It may be stuck in the glands itself. So what we do, we put the warm compress. So you get a cloth, a clean cloth that is, and you would dampen it with warm water. Not warm, not hot enough to burn you, but just warm. And you lay it across the eyelid. What that will do is it will get the material that is there a little more in a liquid form. It will break it down, and then you massage the eyes, possibly with a Q-tip, etc. You massage the top of the eyes to let that the secretions come out. So then it will unclog the glands basically. That's the main idea behind it. Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're going on to the cataract. So cataract, as some of you may know, is a clouding of the lens in the eye. So remember I told you about the lens in the eye. When as life goes on a normal basis, you see, um, the lens in the eye itself would be putting on layers. It's just like how the trees put on layers every year or so. Similar thing with the eyes, it puts on different layers in terms of the lens. That will contribute to the clouding of the lens as well. Also, in certain cases, such as diabetes, etc., the lens would be absorbing a lot more um, materials in terms of certain nutrients, etc., and that as well can make the lens a bit more cloudy. So, if someone lives, long enough, let's say, or because some people may not have it now, but if they live until 90, 80 years, etc., eventually they may develop the cataract. However, um, there are various things that lead to it. If you're more exposed to some UV light, if you're a diabetic, etc., they would tend to form the cataract a lot quicker than some other persons. Persons who are on medications such as steroids, they as well, that can lead to cataract formation. And some signs of cataract formation, they start to see cloudy, certain colors, they are not as distinct as before. Some people also have problems with light, so the glare, that may be a problem as well in certain cases. So that's the cataract there. It's usually treatment. Well, you could say hereditary, yes, like you'll have a higher chance of getting it, possibly if someone else has it, but at the end of the day, it's a what we call a aging condition. So even though, let's say someone's parents, etc., doesn't have it, that doesn't mean you may not develop it. Because at the end of the day, if you live long enough for those layers to begin going onto the lens continuously, it will get what we call a little more dense. The lens itself gets denser every time a layer goes on. Okay, so oh yeah, so the treatments we usually use some people, depending on the what we call the severity of the cataract or how bad it is, if it's affecting the vision. If it's not doing much, they can simply just use glasses and it will help them. We call them high plus lenses. Lenses. It will help them to see a little bit better because the problem is usually at near. So it'll help them with that. Or if the case is, such that the person can't really function in their capacity with the cataract, then they could have it taken out in terms of surgery. And the majority of cataract surgeries, it has a high success rate. So it's good in terms of the treatment. Let's look at glaucoma now. Glaucoma is simply high intraocular pressure in the eye. So what this simply means, intraocular is just talking about the eyes, and it's a high pressure that is in the eyes. So it's not the pressure that you would have in terms of high blood pressure. It's a different pressure because it deals with um, a watery substance, what we call the aqueous humor in the eye. So there's a space here, and there's a space behind the eye here. All of that space is filled with something we call aqueous humor. It's a liquid. And when what we call a drainage system for this aqueous humor. If it's blocked by something, possibly in between the lens and the iris, or even in the angle where the drainage takes place, you can have the glaucoma forming, or basically the pressures in the eye going up. So when the pressures in the eyes go up now, it exerts a pressure at the back of the eyes as well. The problem, or what is really is the problem here, is when the pressure is exerted on the optic nerve. Remember, that's one of the two things I told you to remember, the optic nerve that transmits information to the brain. Once pressure is put on that nerve, it may damage the fibers and the cells in the nerve, and that is what causes the problem with glaucoma. So the people with glaucoma in the periphery or the sides of their vision, it will start to decrease because of the nerves that are being damaged in this area here. And the thing with glaucoma, we call it the silent killer per se, because you won't really notice it because it's at the side. If you take a look at your vision now, you're watching the screen here, you realize everything on the sides are blurred, but whatever is in front of you, it's clear. So that's the thing with glaucoma. It sort of affects the periphery. Some certain times you may not study what's in the periphery or the side. Only that's why it's so important to have the regular eye exams, etc., so it can be picked up quickly in that aspect. Another thing to note is that the only time you may somebody rather would have glaucoma, the only time that they may pick up on it is more at the severe stages, when they realize, they're not seeing on one side as they would have before. So if they are driving, they find, they're not seeing things at the side as they would have before. So there are certain things they can pick up on. Some other symptoms that are usually associated with it is around lights. They may see like little halos around the lights, like rings around the lights. Their vision may be a little bit blurred. Some people complain of a stabbing pain in the eye as well at times. And basically, it's important to take note of those things, or even, as I said, the regular eye exams is the more important or main aspect of this. The glaucoma. Glaucoma, in terms of treatment, the treatment is good, but as I said before, the damage that is being done, it's not reversible. Well, at this point in time, it's not reversible. So it's important. In terms of medications, we use eye drops that takes down the pressure in the eye, relieving the pressure at the back here. Also, in certain cases, they can do what we call laser, where they put a hole here so the drainage can occur, or even in another part of the eye at the corner here. Another thing that they may do as well, they can put what we call a shunt on the cornea that helps with drainage as well. So the main thing is it's a drainage problem in the eye. Let's go on now to what we call diabetic retinopathy. And it basically occurs with, as the first part of the word says, diabetics. It's due to leaky blood vessels at the back of the eye, especially at the what we call the retina. So this image here is what when you see the eye specialist looks at the back of the eye, this is what we are looking at. We are seeing arteries, we are seeing vessels, the optic disc, as I mentioned before, the nerve that transmits information to the brain, the fovea and the macular area that helps you to see sharp. Basically, when you're watching the screen here, you're seeing everything sharply. That's because of your macular area. Everything else in the wider area, we call it the periphery. That helps with your vision at the sides, as we would say. And what happens in the diabetics, once the sugar, etc., is not being controlled properly, we have the leaking of blood vessels. And the leaking of those blood vessels, or the would cause what we call hemorrhages or blood on the retina, and that can lead to certain blind spots in the person's vision. In the more severe stages, we can have new blood vessels forming. However, the new blood vessels are abnormal. They leak even more, so they would contribute to more bleeding on the retina. Also, exudate spots. We can have detachment of the retina, when the retina, the back of the eyes, actually it detaches or it loosens in those cases. And some of the symptoms you may look out for in terms of the detachment of the eye is like flashes of light, sudden flashes of light in the vision. Also, some people complain of, like a curtain effect at the side of their vision. some people, in terms of diabetic retinopathy as a whole, they'll tell you about blurred vision, certain blind spots, not necessarily at the sides, but it can be anywhere, even at the central vision, because the macula as well can be affected in these cases. Um, there are treatments for diabetic retinopathy. There are injections that they do at times to stop new blood vessels from forming. There are also laser treatments where they laser the spot to help stop the bleeding or the hemorrhaging at that particular area in the eye. And as they would always say, the main things with these is simply once they control the blood sugar level, these things wouldn't really happen. However, the duration of someone's having diabetes, it it actually makes the likelihood of diabetic retinopathy happen. So the longer they have it, for example, we know that if you ever heard about type 1 diabetes, when they have it at a younger age, they would tend to develop it later on in life, because at the end of the day, the longer you have it is the more likelihood that you would be able to experience diabetic retinopathy. So duration is a big factor there as well. And this is the last one for the pathology section. It's called age-related macular degeneration. Okay. So age-related macular degeneration. In this case, as the word itself is, it's an age-related condition, but it increases with certain conditions. So you'll see it more possibly in diabetics, smokers, etc. They would quicker develop it. Even in the Caucasian people, they have a higher prevalence of having the age-related macular degeneration. And it's basically damage to the what we call the macula. As I said before, it gives you that sharp central vision. So these people, unlike glaucoma, they don't have a problem in the periphery per se, but they have a problem with the central vision. So it's basically the opposite. Um, in age-related macular degeneration, some people would complain of that central vision would be blurring. They won't see well there. And another thing to note about this condition is that the effects are usually irreversible. However, there's two forms, the dry and the wet forms. In the wet form, usually they'll get injections to help stop the hemorrhaging, etc. The reason why it's called wet is because hemorrhaging and fluid is being um is accumulating in the macular area. As I said, injections are available, so it can clear up. But at the end of the day, any damage takes place to the retina, it's usually or the macula, it's usually irreversible. Another thing in terms of the macular degeneration for treatment, what we usually have these people do, since the vision is irreversible, we can use what we call magnifiers to help them to see images or objects at near. And in the next part, we'll go through a little bit more on this in terms of what we call the low vision, or when they need to use magnifiers, etc., to help with their vision. Okay, and as I said before, I just wanted to incorporate certain, biblical things that we would know of in terms of the presentation and in terms of the different sections. So in pathology, what I really want to make sure you all get with this is that at the end of the day, is lifestyle things is what causes certain pathologies to happen. Yes, there are hereditary aspects to some, and in terms of the conditions. However, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves, etc. So one thing or one scripture I really want to pull on is the um 3 John chapter 1 verse 2. It says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." So it's not just about you prospering in terms of your soul. You're happy, you have that peace, etc. But your body, in terms of your health, is very important as well. And if we could see it in the Bible saying that, then we know, it's a serious thing. It's not just about doing all the other things in life and prospering, having wealth in every area, but health in terms of your wealth in terms of your health itself is very important. And as I said, it comes back to the eating or the drinking. 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether you Whether therefore you eat or you drink, whatsoever you do it all for the glory of God. If you're doing something for the glory of God, well, at the end of the day, you do it to the best of your ability. So even it's a simple thing, eating and drinking, it's good to pay attention to those things. Not nobody never say, don't have anything nice, etc. But um it's not just that aspect of alone. You have to have a full all rounded, or what we call the holistic um a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle overall. Another thing to note is the First Corinthians 6, verse 19 to 20. It says, "Do you not know that your bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought with a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." And honoring God with your bodies, that's the main aspect I would say in this scripture here. Um, oh yeah, basically in terms of, everyone says, they want to fulfill the vision God have for their life, so for the purposes, etc. But the likelihood is that you'd need a healthy body, you'd need to be able to go around and to function. And as we're dealing with the eye, you'd need to, see properly to do certain things if you want to, achieve um the purposes or the visions God has for your life, etc. And to do that, at the end of the day, you need to keep healthy, especially in terms of the eyes as we are focusing here. So for this is the end of the pathology aspect of it. So now if you all have any questions, etc., we can go through them. I could also go back if you'd like to discuss anything or you want me to go over anything. Okay, so let me just clarify something, right? So it depends on the dry eyes that you have, right? Because as I said, it's different layers. Depending on what layer is affected, then you'll do certain things. If the the lipid or the oil layer is affected, that will mean most likely the glands here not allowing those liquids to flow. So that's why we'll do the warm compresses. So you'll do that possibly, for 5 minutes, you leave it on the eyes. You could do it. You don't need to necessarily do that every day. You could do it probably 3 times a week, etc. It's just to get because once you do it once, it will start the 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 composition of the things in the glands will break down. So it's not that you need to do it every day or anything like that. It's just simply to break down the products that are in there, clogging it up. Another thing that you would need to note, um, once you have dried, that doesn't mean you need warm compressors or that treatment, because if this is not the problem, then you're using the wrong solution. Possibly it's the aqueous part that's deficient. In that cases, you would need possible lubricants to help keep the eye surface moist, or maybe it's the mucin layer, etc. Okay, sure. Um, Two things that you mentioned there. One is one of the causes that we see really coming forward with the dry eyes is, as you said, the computer work. At the end of the day, we more on the digital side now. So everybody on the phone, everybody on the laptops, etc. And what the research has seen is that people actually blink less when they're on a laptop. So that's one of the reasons why you'll be developing the dry eyes as well. And one of the things we usually tell people in those cases, every 20 minutes or so, you you look away from the laptop for about, average of 20 feet for 20 seconds. We call it the 20-20-20 rule. So for every 20 minutes, take a break for 20 seconds to look at an object 20 feet away. And try and you don't necessarily need to be conscious, but be aware of your blinking. You need to, keep blinking, etc. Because the eyes will dry up. Certain things like the EC units and the fans, etc. Keep it away from hitting the face directly as well. As I said, eventually, in terms of like if you hit the 90s, hundreds, etc., you may get. But in terms of prevention, like for now, the main things is UV protection, so the transitions, the sunglasses, etc. Because UV light it also speeds up the development of a cataract. So UV light protection is good. Um, Another thing, the lifestyle, certain lifestyle diseases may actually how to put it, add to it also. Another thing that will help in that term is the antioxidants. So, having certain vitamins, vitamin A, C. We also talk about, you always hear about the carrots. Carrots have what we call beta carotene in them, which helps, all of those are antioxidants. So that will as well will help to slow the formation of a cataract. Um, And it comes back to the whole point of, the eye examinations, the what we call a routine eye examination, making sure and go and get checked because, yeah, 1 year or two, we may not see anything, to talk about, but next 2 years, you never know what may be developing there. So especially those with glaucoma, diabetes, etc. The routine eye exams we call it is very important. As we say, prevention better than cure. And that's it there, guys. Thank you for watching this week's video. If you have learned something, don't forget, could share it in the comments. Tell me what you learned through this video. Continue to support me on the Instagram, on the Facebook pages as well, guys. You could go over there, leave a like, follow. I share content there as well. So, guys, that's it for this week. I'm out, guys. Peace.